Hi everyone. My goal is to efficiently communicate to you how to write a profile so that you are able in 1 week's time to submit your profile. You need to remember that the OWL is expecting your paper 2 days before the deadline. The deadline's next Sunday. So here are some steps for writing a profile, and I would also encourage you to have open in a tab on your browser the document that explains analyzing profiles and writing profiles, and that's posted under Unit 2 on Blackboard. On the screen you can see that this is intended to be a 50 to 75 minute workshop, but the most important thing you can do to get ready for this is to go through the modules on how to write a profile. And then you also, most importantly, you need to read the section called Analyzing and Writing Profiles. And that's in the folder marked Week 2. And you should be able to find it in the readings there. It's a PDF file, so you can save it to your computer. That is something that you should have open in your browser as we go through this little workshop. But one thing I want to emphasize is you don't have to have all the answers up front. This is intended to be kind of brainstorming, pre-writing, and so we're focusing on the process, not a product. This is not something that you sell on Shark Tank and then you get shot down. Your job is to basically have a plan, and the start of that plan happens with you and choosing something that you're passionate about. So looking at this third slide, you see that we're trying to guide you. We're trying to give you some kind of outline for creating the profile. Remember that you should have already done your legwork. You should have figured out what your topic is, at least a working topic. And there are times where we realize something is not going forward, and so we change directions, and that's okay. You can't do that the night before, but the main thing is that you find something that's interesting to you. On this slide there are 2 links, and these links lead to something I'm interested in, college football, and specifically Nebraska college football. There are things in each of our lives that create excitement, and that's what you want to find. So as you begin, remember that we have, in any piece of writing, we probably have some sort of introduction. Even in a story, you have some kind of introduction. So our opening, we call it a hook. We call it a lead. And the point is that you're trying to get those sharks on the line, right? If this is Shark Tank, then you're trying to hook a shark. And if you've seen that show, you understand how difficult it can be. The people who come on the show, they are very creative in trying to get the attention of the people who might fund them. You have to have an intriguing beginning, something that maybe is a snapshot of your person or place. And another way to do it is, if you're including some narrative, you start in the middle of action. This might, at the beginning of your profile paper, you might have an anecdote. An anecdote is a very short episode or story. Nothing long. You don't want to take too much time before you actually get into the purpose of your writing. But an anecdote is a good start. Maybe it's a quote. Maybe some information that is in descriptive form. It could be interesting facts. Or you could start with a question or a comparison you see on the screen. So I hope that you can see that there's a variety of ways that you can start. Try not to be always using the same opening. A lot of times people start with a dictionary definition. I think that that's a little cliche in this day and age. It's been done so many times. So try to find something that maybe is a quote from a person that's connected to your subject. If you do a quote by Mark Twain, but your profile has nothing to do with Mark Twain, it can seem a little artificial and tacked on. But sometimes it can work. I just read an article where a quote from Huckleberry Finn was used. And the whole article was about maps, and there was a mention of a map by Huck Finn. And so that's an interesting way to get the reader in. So this lead can also be a flashback to an earlier time in your subject's life. And so if it's a person, that would make sense. If it's a place, you might want to demonstrate some action in that place, something taking place in that place. So I hope that this kind of helps you get started, but sometimes if you just can't come up with a good lead, you may need to wait until later and first flesh out the meat and then put the icing on the cake. But don't forget, a lead is extremely important. And I always like to say that the title is very important too. A title is usually what's going to grab people's attention first, especially in our internet hypertext world. And with newspapers, they don't have time. Readers don't have time to read the first paragraph of every article. And so they'll look at headlines, they'll look at titles. So make your title catchy. And a couple ways to do this: use a phrase in a new way. Maybe it's a lyric to a song and you use it as a title, but you give it a new meaning within that context. You can use alliterative titles, but that again can kind of get cliche and overdone. But it's a good place to start. Think of words that start with the same sound, and it will help you start playing with words to create a title. Here you see that profiles are not news articles. So when I say in a newspaper, I don't mean the traditional inverted pyramid news article on something that's happened overnight and you just want to get the facts. So a profile or a human interest story is something that you can kind of wade into. You don't need the who, what, when, where, why, how in the first paragraph, like the inverted pyramid. Inverted means upside down, and if you have an inverted pyramid, that means the biggest part is at the top. That's why they call it an inverted pyramid for a news article. But this is a profile, so it can appear in a newspaper, but it's a human interest story. So the first paragraph is, okay, here it's called a nut graph. And I guess this is something that it's going to explain the purpose, but it doesn't have to give everything away. So there has to be a point. And I think that this is something that, with your narrative, hopefully you came to understand. And I'll try and give you clear feedback on that individually. But you've got to show that there's a point to what you're writing. And usually the lead paragraph is where you discover why a person is the subject of your profile or why a place is the subject of your profile. Okay, here you have some directions for what to do, and this is really up to you. It's recommended here that you take 10 minutes, pick your subject, and it says you're going to profile this person or place in an hour or so. So this is a process for writing your profile. But, I want to encourage you to do some research and find something that you're really passionate about. I don't want you to sit here and think that you have to come up with your topic immediately. But remember that your hook will be what gets people interested in what you're doing. And so I think it would be a good idea for you right now, take 5 minutes and write out your hook once you know your topic. Okay, so if you want to take 10 minutes and pick a subject, that's great. If you want to take a little more time than that and then come back to this, that's fine. But the point is, it's time to get going. So once you have your hook, you're ready to start building the body of your profile. And again, don't get hung up on grammar or spelling or even organization at this point. The beauty of having word processing, Word and Pages and all the things that you can use on a computer, the beauty of that is that you can reorganize as you feel a need later on, as you look back and you realize that maybe the flow doesn't work or you get feedback from another reader. But once you're ready to build the body of your essay, just know that you can organize it chronologically if it's a person and you're talking about their life. But what you should know is that that's maybe the most typical for encyclopedias, and sometimes there's a more effective way. And so thematically is the one that I want to address here. That means that you're looking at the importance of your person and you're breaking down that importance. Maybe the person was a great thinker, a great philanthropist, a giver, and maybe this person is also quirky. So, thinking and philanthropy and quirkiness, those are 3 traits. And you can pretty much break down what you want to write using those categories. So there's going to be kind of some backtracking. You're going to go through all the things that make the person a great thinker and maybe how that started. Maybe a quote from a person, how their thinking started, how their innovative thinking began. And then you get into the fact that not only is this person smart, but they are kind and they care about other people in some way. Okay, I'm honestly, I don't have a set topic here for you, but you can take someone like Helen Keller if you're doing a historical topic. I would honestly encourage you to choose someone from your own life, a family member, a friend, a community member that you have access to, even just interviewing people or talking to people who knew the person. It doesn't have to be somebody you interview directly. You can build your profile without actually talking to that person. So, chronological is probably the easiest if you're really building up to a climax. But I think thematically is a great way to go. You're weaving together the background information and the details that you personally come up with. Remember, when you're writing a profile, you're not just a researcher, you're also a participant. So you're participating in this process. You're giving your own feelings. You're talking about your drive to your interview and maybe the things that are going through your own head. So you can use a Q&A format, but just know if you do that, you're interviewing the subject, and that's going to reveal everything you want to say. And so you're going to have to carefully design your questions if you do that. Okay, so once you have thought of your organization, you've thought of the topics that you're going to bring out in your essay, then it's time to really get going. And so here on this slide, again, you see kind of an outlining process. You brainstorm, and then you come to a conclusion about what the point is for what you want to say. So before you can get all the details down, you have to have your purpose. You have to have your map for what you want to do. I like to think of map as message, audience, purpose. And so if you think of that, maybe you can think of this slide as creating a map. What do you think are the important aspects for the body of your profile? And what do you want your readers to know at the end of the profile? So that's really your purpose, your message, and you're thinking of your audience. You're not just thinking of what you like, because some things will be new to your audience that are very ordinary and very well known to you. So you've created your hook. You've created kind of a map of the body. And now it gives you directions to take 5 minutes and create an actual paragraph that could be a part of your profile. Remember, could be doesn't mean that you have to have all the answers right now, but you're wanting to write in complete sentences now. You're wanting to write complete thoughts that are connected with good transition words. And I would recommend that you write out your paragraph right now. You can pause the audio or go back to it if you'd like. And then you can see the second thing after you write one paragraph for your profile. It can be anywhere from your profile. Then you want to have an outline. Okay, so this does not all have to be in order. Maybe the paragraph you write is the most memorable thing that you want to really flesh out. But now, at the bottom here of this slide, you want to make sure that you have an outline, and your outline can be sentences, it can be phrases and bullet points, it can be a web. There are many ways to outline, but you can't go forward if you don't have organization, and hopefully you have some experience with this. Again, if you have questions on what I'm talking about, I hope you'll email me, review this, and come up with some questions if you still are stuck. Sometimes when we're talking about writing, okay, you may have experienced this in middle school or high school, but when we're talking about writing, sometimes we talk about a sandwich, right? We talk about a hamburger. You've got the top bun, you've got the bottom bun. You've got the intro, you've got the conclusion. I like to talk about mirrors, the house of mirrors. And your intro and your conclusion should be mirrors of one another, but it's like a fun house mirror, and you can't have exactly, you can't have in your conclusion exactly what you had in your introduction. And it's filtered. It's filtered through the body of your essay. Meaning that when you get to the conclusion, the reader has lots more information than they did in the introduction. So you don't need to repeat, but you need to crystallize. You need to crystallize the things that you have already introduced. And so what it encourages you to do for this last exercise is to write a few sentences talking about these things. How do you want to wrap up the profile? What's interesting to you as a reader, as an audience, when you read a conclusion? What's interesting to you? What grabs you? And then it says, imagine a conclusion that frames your profile. So a frame, that's another way. Not just, pieces of bread or buns or mirrors, but a frame. So your intro and your conclusion are your frame. And, finally, you're going to write your final 3 sentences. I would encourage you to try to do that, even if you discard it. At least you're getting into the process. You, in this activity, you're very much a researcher and a journalist. And this is the kind of writing you will do most often. Maybe your narrative event was a little bit more like creative writing, but this it can be creative, but it's got to be informative too. It's got to reveal something to the reader. And so I hope you can see that this is useful writing. This is the kind of writing that you can do whether you're doing a psychology study or whether you're an educator in the classroom and you want to show learning that your students are doing. The point is, I think that this is the kind of writing that maybe you didn't get to do enough of when you were in high school. Maybe you wrote about literature all the time. Maybe not. So I hope that you can enjoy this and realize that you have freedom within limits. Your freedom is to choose a topic that you're passionate about, and the limits are the fact that this is still an essay and there are still guidelines for this genre. Thanks for listening. I hope that this has helped a little bit. If you are confused, if you have questions, please email me. Let me know so I can help you more. Thanks.